Here's a radical global warming activist in the Albanese government. Two things today, I think, exposed his plans to slash our emissions by 2050, that they are insane. They're plans based on bullying and on bull. Now, I'm going to start first with the bullying. It's the kind of bullying you often get with the green movement. You know, we're saving the planet, so we can just run right over you. Well, today, Chris Bowen announced a big new zone for investors to build wind farms. Now, he wants hundreds more of these all over the country. But this one is going to be off the New South Wales coast because, you know, many Australians now don't want them anywhere near their homes or their farms. And Bowen says, don't worry about this offshore wind farm zone. It's now about 20 kilometres off the coast. And the towers are only 260 metres high. That's a quarter of a kilometre. So he says you shouldn't see them too much, and tough if you do.
The offshore wind is some distance now from the shore, you know, be very difficult to see. If people say they don't believe in renewable energy and they don't believe in offshore wind, sure, they're not going to be happy. But if people say, we get it, we know the renewable energy transformation has to happen, but we would like to see our community brought with us and our views considered, their views certainly have been considered.
Now, Bowen says this wind farm zone was moved further off the coast, 20 kilometres now, after consulting locals. But it seems a lot of people on that particular patch of coast, they feel bulldozed with really fake consultation and little warning.
We got to the meeting and I was expecting to have people there to answer questions, like where's coming ashore, what impacts are going to be on the marine life. Lots and lots of questions that everybody had. None of them could be answered.
If this is where we live, like, we should have some consultation. The residents should be able to voice their concerns before things move too fast or too far ahead.
Norah Head Surfing Reserve was not consulted. We found out the same way everybody else did.
Now, a number of locals are also wondering, what are all these massive wind farms out there going to do to the migrating whales in that patch of sea? Well, says Bowen, no worries.
Whales are smart animals. They can navigate around oil rigs, gas rigs, cargo ships, cruise ships, offshore wind turbines.
I thought this was a green government, really. But maybe he's right, you know, no problems. But I have to say, more than 50 whales have so far died since December off the US east coast, near offshore wind farms there. Now, American government agencies say, well, there's no connection, but locals are furious, and they've now got a congressional agency agreeing to investigate to see if those wind farms really are a danger to whales. Joining me is one of the locals upset by that wind farm zone that Chris Bowen announced today is Nick Anderson. He's from a pressure group called Love Norah Head, Love the Coast. Nick, thank you so much for joining me. What is wrong with this wind farm zone?
The problem with the wind farm zone is about the consultation process, how it has been rushed ahead, how it has been steamrolled through without proper consultation with the local residents. We found out about the wind farm and the proposed wind farm off Norah Head 10 days before the actual closing date of the consultation process. So we rushed together to try and, you know, put together information that we could get out to the local residents and tell them more about it. When we first thought, oh, wind farms, yeah, we're pro-renewable, we like the idea. And then we looked into the details and the size of these wind farms and the fact that they were putting it 10 kilometres out. It was atrocious. It was going to dominate the landscape of Norah Head. It was going to affect the marine life. It was going to affect the surf of our National Surfing Reserve at Norah Head. And yet there was no consideration, there was no consultation, there was nothing.
Well, you had some success. I mean, now it's a bit smaller and it's 20 kilometres out. And Chris Bowen says, well, look, yes, you can still see these towers. I mean, they're quarter of a kilometre high. I mean, it's just quite incredible. You can see them, but they're not in your face, you know, and they're quite distant. Are you happy now?
We'd be happier if they used international best practices, do what the UK are doing, do what the US are doing, and do independent assessments before declaring a zone. That would make us far happier, because then we would all have the information that what is the right solution and how these wind farms can be used to everybody's benefit without wrecking the environment. We're certainly happy that they've listened to us and they've moved it further off Norah Head and off the Central Coast, which is not an industrial centre like Newcastle. Norah Head is known for its beauty. It's the jewel of the Central Coast. It's where people go for surfing, fishing, whale watching. So yeah, we're happy that they've listened, but we're not satisfied that they're not taking the right procedure going forward. I mean, here we are.
Oh, look, I'm totally with you. I've got an aunt in Holland who, you go to her local beach and you see these awful, awful machines in the water. Just, it's like vandalism. But to pick up your point, I find it amazing. Chris Bones says, oh, well, look, if there's a problem with whales, for instance, because there's a migratory route there, well, look, then any company that wants to actually build wind farms now in that zone, they're going to have to get government environmental approval anyway. I would have thought that should have been sorted out before you declare a zone there.
Yeah, we agree. We absolutely agree. And when we met with DQ a few weeks ago, the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Water, down in Canberra, and people were dialing in from Norah Head, the head of offshore infrastructure said there was no knowledge of any whales that were dying because of wind farms. And straight away, we were straight on top of them with information about the whales that were dying off the coast, off the east coast of the US, and how it was being reported that there were 50 whales since December that were washing ashore on the coast. This was news to the head of offshore infrastructure. He looked at us. He looked at us. No, he looked at us as if we were telling him a porky pie. It was unbelievable.
Mate, even I knew that, months and months ago, and I'm not an environmental department bigwig, and I don't have wind farms off not yet, off my stretch of coast. I knew that, and he didn't. I mean, so Nick Anderson, you've told him, hey, listen, the whale's dying in America. He didn't know. What did you say then?
Well, the meeting started to conclude, and we were reiterating our point of how the message was coming across, and that we were telling them that the flyer that we received was all about the Hunter. It didn't mention anything about the Central Coast. There was no benefits to the Central Coast. Yes, there's jobs for the Hunter region, not for the Central Coast. And this was highlighted by Central Coast Council in their submission to the department. And yet he gets off his chair and yells at us and says, I'll give you a benefit to the Central Coast. It's called climate change. And we all said, look, we're educated people. We know what climate change is. We're all for it.
Yes.
But not going and destroying our environment to save someone else's.
Absolutely correct. And don't forget, of course, this wind farm would make about as much difference as a spit in the hurricane to global warming anyway. So what is the benefit is a very good question. Nick Anderson, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.